Hey guys, so I'm going to do this a little bit unscripted, mostly because I have a story I want to tell you. I would have recorded this outside, but it's really windy and I don't want to deal with the audio issues related to that, so I'm just going to film in here in this classroom. Luckily, no one is here because it's Saturday, and who comes to school on Saturday? Me, apparently. But I wanted to sort of tell a story on how it is that I got to where I am and all of the struggles I went through just to get here. And I say this because lately I've been thinking a little bit more about some of the issues that Asian Americans go through, more specifically related to the model minority myth that Asian Americans are typically well off, they are book smart, and they work really hard, and they go to college and live a fairly cushy, yappy life. I say yappy because recently Wong Fu Productions made an appearance at ASU, and I was able to see Philip Wang and also get some viewings on some of the episodes related to their series called Yappy. I'm actually wearing a shirt that I bought from the event. So definitely go check it out because they address some of the issues that Asian Americans typically go through or stereotype to go through. And I'll try to include that in the links below. So this has been something that I've certainly been thinking about, and I want to be able to illustrate some of the struggles that I've gone through personally, um, more to try to help those people who maybe are struggling with what they want to do in life, or struggling with failure, or struggling with um, how to be pleasing to their friends, family, and other peers, since family is a very big aspect of the culture in Asian American culture. I think typically Asian Americans expect their children to go to college and to be essentially perfect, doing all of these things that lead them to a more cushy life. So even though I'm someone who is also in STEM and someone who is studying um an engineering field at its highest level by doing a PhD. I also went through many struggles to get to where I am, and I'm going to go and illustrate some of that later in this video. My story, so a little bit of background information, I guess. So, um, my parents immigrated from China in the late 80s, and essentially, like all Asian Americans, they wanted to have a better life for their children. They actually have fairly uh, middle school, high school level of education, so um, they weren't really qualified to do a lot of things when they came here, mostly manual labor jobs. So my father, worked for as a cook for many years, and my mother, she's worked as a waitress for most of her life as well. And they were both able to put us through college and part of grad school. So I'm immensely grateful for everything my parents have done for me. And hopefully they'll be proud that aside from being the first college graduates in our immediate family, that I'm the first STEM graduate in our entire family. A quick shout out to my sister though, because she'll eventually be the second STEM graduate in our family because she'll be pursuing a nursing degree. Anyway, I grew up in a fairly low income environment, so didn't have too much in terms of materials goods, but we always had all the essentials: food, roof over our head, access to education. So, in a way, I lived a fairly comfortable life, but maybe not as comfortable as some of my Asian American peers. And boy, a lot of the families that my parents are acquainted with or were friends with, a lot of them were that definition of um, being comfortable because they either own businesses or they were fairly well educated and had pretty high paying jobs, which led to a more middle class lifestyle. And as per typical fashion, Asian Americans like to really compare their children. So um, some of my achievements versus some of their children's achievements, and becomes sort of a contest of sorts. I guess what led me to STEM in the first place was not necessarily my parents' insistence. They were never really tiger parents. They were more just do well in school, get a good job and have a nice, happy life. They weren't really the type of people who said you have to get all A's or I'm going to disown you, basically. So they definitely weren't that type of parents. But I would say that because of that, we were never really pushed in any particular direction, so we were sort of free to do whatever we wanted, which was sort of good and bad because we were never like super focused and we didn't have a lot of guidance in that end. So what really drove me to STEM was actually a lot of the media I was exposed to. So growing up, when we still had those things called encyclopedias in the classroom, I would usually sort of browse through each of the volumes and like absorbed information that was in each of them. Also gravitating towards a large number of science books, health books, even ancient Egyptian history. So I had a lot of diverse interests as a kid. But I also wasn't a very good student. I mostly got B's and C's in grade school, and I almost got kicked out of my accelerated program because I guess I wasn't trying hard enough. Not that it wasn't interesting or challenging, it's just more that maybe I wasn't necessarily motivated or that I didn't seek help when I needed it. That was something that sort of led me to wanting to shape up. And when it came time for middle school, I started getting straight A's. But I also turned full nerd, and I was definitely at my nerdiest point at that point in my life. And it was something that definitely shaped me for the years to come, but also limited me in some ways. So I was very uptight person, kind of shy, um, cared a lot about school, but also planned really far ahead into my future. So like I was the kid who also carried around the Princeton Review's best colleges guide. And I mean, no one at that age is going to carry something like that, right? Most people are be talking about school dances or what video games they play, but I guess not me. So I think that that really set the trajectory for my academic success later in my life. So when I came to high school, I still continued that trend. I still wanted to be competitive, earn that 4.0, but also wanting to get into good universities. So never in my mind did I think I wasn't going to go to college. It was a matter of where and when. I planned ahead and tried to map out all of high school in that end. But it was around junior year of high school, I got my first B, so I lost my 4.0. And at that point, I was still the only person in my class with a 4.0. So it was a little bit of a blow, but I got past it eventually. I was still in the top 1% of the class. But senior year of high school was what really shaped um, my trajectory for the next few years to come. So it was really that impactful, and that I had a massive case of senioritis for one reason or another, and it was something that it was very hard to recover from. I spent most of that year actually earning B's in my classes. The first C I earned in high school was actually in Calculus 1. Now, I know what you're thinking, Asian bad at math? No way. But honestly, I really struggle with calculus. It's for some reason it was the class that either I didn't get it or I just didn't really put in enough effort or sought the help that I needed. So that was something that really was a struggle for me. And of course, when we took our standardized tests like the SAT, ACT, I didn't do very well in the sense that my scores were okay, they were good, but they were merely above average. They weren't anything stellar. So that definitely brought down some of the confidence level. Also, it was a time where I was applying to a bunch of universities outside of the state, mostly because I didn't want to stay in state. I, at the time, wanted to seek bigger and better things in a way. And of course, that was sort of a naive point of view in that, like, school name doesn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things, but it's what I thought at the time. I applied to a few schools out of state. I got into about half of them, and due to financial constraints, I wasn't able to attend any of them, except the one school that provided the full financial package I needed was at the University of Arizona, which is where I ended up going to. That was a decision that I made either not not simply because of finance, but also the environment. And the more I learned about the school, the more I realized that it was actually quite a fantastic school and something that I could potentially see myself growing in. After graduating from there, it was something that I don't regret in my life. And it was some of the best years in my life that um, I've ever experienced. Definitely grateful that I got a chance to go to U of A. Now, I would say that the first year of me going to U of A was probably the worst year of my academic career. I say this because I started off as a biomedical engineering student and ended up earning a whopping 2.0 GPA. Yeah, that was because I failed. That's right, I failed, got an E on Calculus 1. The second time I took it. I had it in high school, had exposure to it. I figured I'd take it in college and it would be fine. But no, I failed the class. This was a personal shame because I met so many people during that first semester at U of A who were brilliant people. They were so accomplished. They did so much stuff in high school, and I couldn't possibly feel myself comparing to their level of success. And I still ended up not doing well, and it was just a big shocker and big disappointment for me. And I didn't do so hot in a lot of my other core engineering classes either. So it was something that I was deeply ashamed of, and it was also something that put me on the engineering probation list because I failed a core class. I signed a contract, and basically I was told to get my grades back up and retake the class, otherwise I'll be kicked out of the engineering college. That was after first semester. So I took the class again, second semester. Luckily, we had this program called the GRO, so we were able to replace the grade that we took in the class, but with whatever grade we end up getting in this class, so they don't pick the better of the two grades. I can't get any lower than an E, so that was basically the only option I had. So I retook the class, barely got a C this time, and it was something that also happened that semester that I never anticipated. And that is I lost my Wildcat Scholarship. And the Wildcat Scholarship was something offered by the U of A that was valued at about $9,000 per year. At the time, my tuition wasn't anywhere close to $9,000. So I ended up losing pretty much my full ride to the U of A. And that was after my first year because my GPA dipped just slightly below 3.0, which is the minimum requirement. And if I had one letter grade higher in one of my classes, it would have met the requirement. That is something that was also a personal shame that happened. And I didn't know what to do. I felt incredibly stupid. I felt like I didn't belong there and that I should have been kicked out. They didn't kick me out, by the way, so since I passed Calc 1, but certainly I wasn't doing very well compared to my peers who had at least a 3.5 or above. So I was really contemplating what I should do, and my parents weren't necessarily disappointed in me. They obviously told me to try harder and to um, be better in my studies, and they tried to be supportive, but they luckily didn't really express a lot of disappointment. And luckily, I was still able to go to U of A because of all the other grants I was awarded. So that sort of settled all my finances. But I needed to shape up, so I ended up taking Calc 2 that summer, worked really hard, and ended up doing really well. So I managed to boost my confidence back a little bit when the sophomore year started. So when I took Calc 3, I actually failed that too. So I don't know what happened. I did put in a lot of work, maybe not enough, but I ended up getting an E also in that class. And I also had to retake that class as part of the GRO. And granted, I can only use the GRO twice. So that was sort of my last class I could possibly do really bad in. And I retook the class, worked really hard, ended up getting a B, but that didn't necessarily save my GPA very much. And I also took physics that semester, and I actually really like physics, and I had a really good instructor, but for one reason or another, I still ended up getting a C in the class. So it started really bringing down my confidence levels and like, why am I failing? Why am I doing so bad? Why is it that I'm not achieving what it is I want to achieve. And I kept thinking about, maybe is it the work that I'm putting in? Is it not enough work that I'm putting in? Is it that I'm intrinsically not able to understand these things? I don't know. It was just something that really plagued my mind. And I really questioned whether or not I should belong in STEM in general. Ended up taking a few more engineering classes that year, didn't do so hot either getting B's, C's, or D's in some of the classes. So I pretty much had grades in every end of the spectrum. But I took a trip to China the summer after my sophomore year and had some time to think. What I ask myself is what it is that I want. What do I want to achieve? Kind of going back to before I started college. So I had this pre-engineering session in Phoenix where all of the students can go and check out the different engineering majors offered by the U of A. So I went and I looked at the different majors, but before that open house started, I was sitting in the audience, and the facilitators asked all the students and even the parents too why the students want to study engineering. They had a bunch of multiple choices on the PowerPoint and asked us to select them using the clickers that we were given. These students all answered through the clickers. I tried answering through mine as well, and two answers really stood out. The highest answer group was that they were good at math and science. Okay, that's pretty much expected. So that's a good majority of the people wanted to go into engineering because of that. And the second group of people wanted to go into engineering because they wanted to earn a lot of money. Well, that makes sense because engineers make some of the highest starting salaries of any major. But why did I want to go to engineering? Well, I didn't pick either of those answers, by the way. I picked another answer, which actually didn't register through my clicker. So it was marked as zero response. And that was, I wanted to help people. It sounds corny and cheesy, but that's something I wanted to do. And I actually missed out on earning a t-shirt that day because apparently they said if someone had answered that, they would have earned a free t-shirt. So my loss, I guess. I truly do want to help people with the skills that I had. And even if I wasn't good, I wanted to make myself good so that I could at least have the toolkit that I needed to influence some sort of industry or movement or technology development or something that could really improve our society and the human condition. And that was something that really drove me to want to do better. So when I came back from China, I wanted to work really hard. And try to pursue a new field. So I was biomedical engineering, but then I wanted to do something a little less specialized, more general. So I wanted to pursue mechanical engineering. So I ended up taking a bunch of courses in mechanical engineering, all the prerequisites, doing decent in some of them, and some not so decent, and really trying my hardest to get into the major because I was only able to switch once I finished all the prerequisites. I finished the prerequisites, but was one letter grade off again to switch into the major. So I couldn't officially declare mechanical engineering as my new major. So I was forced to stay in my own major, BME, and some email that I got from my academic advisor at the time really shut me up for a while because what she had said, and this was after I told her what had happened with mechanical engineering and also what I could do to really advance in my major because I didn't have the grades needed to go to an advanced standing, meaning I can take 300, 400 level classes. But I ended up getting an email from her saying that, I don't think that BME is the best option for you given your track record, and maybe you might want to consider moving to another major, less rigorous engineering major, or just maybe consider leaving the engineering college in general. That was a shocker for me because I didn't necessarily want to leave engineering, but I also was being told by an outside party that maybe I didn't belong here. So I made a choice at the time. I decided to still stay in engineering despite her reservations. I was intending to switch out of BME, and I wanted to switch into one other major with in which I could still finish within 5 years, but something was relatively interested in. So that left me with a few choices. So I had electrical engineering, civil engineering, engineering management, and material science and engineering. I didn't want to do triple E because I don't find the field very fascinating. And I've avoided the other majors because they didn't interest me or weren't technically challenging enough. So that left material science. I knew nothing about the field, by the way, and I jumped into it because it was something that I could finish relatively easy, and that I met the GPA requirement to actually switch into the major. So I did it, and I don't regret that decision one bit, because that was a time when I started transforming myself as a student, in that every class, well, almost every class, but every class I took in MSc, I got an A in, even the 400 level ones. So I went from a 2.0 engineering student who was on probation to earning a 4.0 in all 400 level classes my very last semester of college, and earning a spot on the academic distinction list. That was how I got through undergrad. And it took a lot of persistence to get to that point in my life, and just earning my bachelor's degree. And also not giving up, and also figuring out what it is that you want to do in order to get there. And I realized that bachelor's for me is not enough, and that in order to do what it is I want to do, especially in this new materials field, which has a lot of innovation that needs to be done, I wanted to pursue higher education. So I wanted to pursue a master's degree, mostly because I was still intimidated by a PhD, and I didn't think my academic track record would have been good enough to do a PhD. So I went with the master's, and ended up going to my rival university, so Arizona State, to do my master's, and ended up doing really well in my master's. I got to work in a highly productive research group. I learned a lot of fundamental research skills, networked with a lot of people, and was able to develop myself more as a researcher, leading to a few publications, which gave me some experience on how to actually start a project and then lead it to completion. So that was really the driving force for what really moved me to pursue a PhD. And mind you, I was still very much on the fence with pursuing a PhD, because I was just scared. I wasn't smart enough to do it, and I was not that fond of spending more time in school. Eventually, I relented because where I want to go in life, I think that one, having a PhD will help, but two, I want to develop myself even further as a scientist and also as an engineer. This is something that I'm currently working on, and I hope that I do well in, but I'm sure I will, because I've spent a lot of time struggling, and all that persistence had led me to this point in my life. What I want to leave you with is, and I know this video is kind of long, so thanks if you guys stuck through this story. But what I want to leave you with is that failure is going to happen no matter what. I would say that as long as you are persistent, and you know what it is that you value in life and what it is that you want in life, just press forward, even if it's not in STEM. Don't be afraid of what other people think of you, and don't be afraid of what you think of yourself. At the end of the day, do what makes you happy, and do what it is that could eventually lead to improving the community around you or the world around you at large. I would say that even if you didn't plan on being where it is that you are in life, things will happen to you, and that you never know what types of events will end up changing your life for the better. I didn't know I was going to be a material scientist until just a few years ago, and all of that was accidental in a way. Just be grateful for all the things that are going well in your life, and also don't be afraid of what other people will think. So that goes for those who are Asian American and are afraid of getting anything less than an A, or those who are afraid of what their parents might think if they're going to drop out of medical school, or dropping out of grad school, or going into a non-STEM field. It's going to be okay. Just don't worry too much about it, and also be prepared for failure and be prepared to deal with that failure. That's all I have for today, and thanks again for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more graduate school um, content, and I will see you guys later. Keep calm and Exiton.